Hey guys, what's up? And I'm here today to revive one of my older series, Overlord Explained. I recently just rewatched season 3 of the anime and have reignited my interest and passion for this show. In the process of rewatching as well as surfing online, I've realized there's still many aspects of the story and setting that have either not been elaborated on enough or have been ignored entirely. So today the topic I'm going to be covering is the history of players in the New World prior to Ain's arrival. While it has not been confirmed whether or not there are any other players in the New World with Ainz, it has been confirmed that there were several other players that made it to the New World at some point during the New World's history, which progresses at a different rate than the Yggdrasil game does. So the first group to talk about would be the first recorded group of players to arrive in the New World, the Six Great Gods. So, the group of players that would come to be known as the Six Great Gods arrived in the New World from Yggdrasil around 600 years before Ainz arrived in the New World timeline. As far as their strength is concerned, the specific level all of them were has not been confirmed, but from what we do know about the items they left behind as well as their supposed powers, we can assume they were all close to, if not level 100. We also know that 4 of them were human, 1 was an elf, and 1 was undead. Shortly after their arrival in the New World, they started protecting the human inhabitants who, at the time, were on the brink of extinction by killing many non-human creatures. They began to be worshipped as gods by the humans and sometimes later founded a nation, the Slain Theocracy, with themselves as the rulers as well as the heads of the religion, designating the players as the Six Great Gods. The Six Great Gods were also the first group to introduce tier magic to the New World and began teaching it to members of their nation. The scripture sects were also developed and given color-coded designations showing which god that scripture specifically worshipped. The 4 human members of the 6 gods came to be known as the gods of fire, water, wind, and earth. The elf member was named Allah Alaf and was regarded as the god of life. The member of the 6 gods we know the most about is the undead member named Surshana, who was regarded as the god of death befitting his race. He was described as a skeleton that wore a jet black robe and carried a sparkling staff and a scythe. Surshana was regarded as the strongest of the 6 gods and was considered an evil god by the population, being the most feared member of the group. A current member of the Black Scripture, the group that specifically worships Surshana, said that Ainz greatly resembles him and thought that Ainz was Surshana reincarnated. Therefore, it is likely that Surshana was either an Elder Leech or a Skeleton Mage. Many of their items are currently in possession of the Slain Theocracy, with their items being regarded as godly equipment and their weapons being called sacred regalia. They were also in possession of a world item known as Downfall of Castle and Country, which was an item that could mind control even those with perfect mental resistances. This was the item that was used on Shaltir in season 1 of the anime. In addition, descendants of the bloodline of the 6 Great Gods are referred to as Godkins and are considered by many to be demigods, possessing incredibly high physical and magical power by New World standards. From the existence of Godkins, we can assume that at least some of the Great Gods ended up having children with New World inhabitants. 100 years after their arrival, the only remaining member of the 6 Great Gods was Surshana, as he was undead and therefore did not age like the other members. This allowed him to encounter the second group of players to arrive in the New World that would come to be known as the 8 Greed Kings. The 8 Greed Kings arrived 500 years prior to the current story and were all humanoid race players, with 7 of their members being male and 1 being female. Once again, their exact levels have not been confirmed, but like the 6 Great Gods, they were likely either near or at level 100 upon arriving in the New World due to evidence that they were capable of using 10th tier magic. They were also in possession of many high-level items, including cash shop items, a guild weapon, and a world item called the Nameless Book of Spells. They also had a guild base called Yuanshu, which was a floating castle. Once they realized how powerful they were relative to the New World, the 8 Greed Kings decided to conquer the world. Like the 6 Great Gods, they specifically targeted non-human races, while treating humans rather well under their rule. During their conquest, they encountered Surshana, who had apparently made a deal with some of the Dragon Lords to kill the 8 Greed Kings. However, this attempt to overthrow them failed and ended with the death of Surshana. Following this encounter with Surshana, the 8 Greed Kings began to target the Dragon Lords, as they were an extremely powerful race within the New World. The conflict resulted in most of the Dragon Lords being killed, with only a few who avoided the war surviving, which included Platinum Dragon Lord and Deep Darkness Dragon Lord. It was said that it took 10 Dragon Lords to defeat just one of the Greed Kings. Many of the Greed Kings ended up dying in the conflict, but with their cash shop items were able to resurrect each other. However, their form of resurrection was inferior to Ainz's current method, and each resurrection resulted in their items degrading in value and their powers diminishing due to the resurrection penalty. Despite this, they ended up exceeding in their conquest of the world. Their rule was pretty short-lived, however, as their own greed ended up causing them to fight each other and ended with all of them dead. This is likely due to humans not receiving any emotional dampening like Ainz and becoming obsessed with their possessions and power. Despite their relatively short rule, the 8 Greed Kings have a considerable legacy within the New World. It is said that if it were not for the 8 Greed Kings and their purging of non-human races, it is likely that humans would have gone extinct due to their relative weakness compared to other races. In addition, the 8 Greed Kings were the major driving force behind the spread of tier magic in the New World, spreading it across the continent with humans everywhere starting to develop it. These two actions are some of the most prevalent reasons as to why humans became the dominant species in the New World. Their guild base, Eryuanshu, also still exists and has many items that are from Earth. Brain Unglaus actually obtained his katana from this city, and Ainz is particularly wary of investigating the city due to the evidence of players there. Currently, Platinum Dragon Lord is in possession of most of the items and weapons that belong to the 8 Greed Kings and also resides in their guild base. The next player that arrived in the New World arrived 300 years before Ainz. The only thing we know about this player is that he encountered Deep Darkness Dragon Lord shortly after arriving in the New World and was killed by him. Sadly, there is no information on the player's race, level, or how he was killed, but we do know he was in possession of a world item that was taken by Deep Darkness Dragon Lord after he killed the player. The next player arrived around 250 years before Ainz. This player was a Minotaur race, and while his level has not been stated and not too much is known about him, it was said he wielded an axe and was powerful enough to create tornadoes or split the earth. This suggests he was a high-level player, likely around level 80 or higher. Despite his great power, this player is mostly known for his introduction of the idea of modern household appliances like refrigerators and fans. The New World inhabitants were skeptical of these suggestions though, because the player was unable to explain how the items worked or exactly why they were needed due to his warrior class. Because of how much he talked and boasted about his ideas, the New World inhabitants started calling him the Minotaur Sage. In addition to his proposals about household items from Earth, he also enacted social changes within the Minotaur Nation by raising the statuses of humans, who were previously treated as livestock within the Minotaur Nation, to slaves. He was also the first to propose the idea of modern surgery to the New World, though this method was crude and was described as cutting open a body and removing diseased portions to cure disease and prevent epidemics. This surgery method was actually discussed between King Ramposa and Gazef Stronov in the current story, with Gazef describing it as barbaric. The Minotaur Sage eventually died in the Great Minotaur Nation, leaving behind his weapons for them to use. It is said if it were not for these weapons being in possession of the Great Minotaur Nation, they likely would have already been wiped out by their neighbors, the Beastmen Commonwealth. The last players who arrived before Ainz were 2 members of the legendary group known as the 13 Heroes, who arrived in the New World 200 years before Ainz. Nothing about their appearance is mentioned, but they were both human players. They ended up joining the 13 Heroes and participated in their quest to destroy a group known as the Evil Deities, who were causing havoc around the world at the time. Unlike the others who arrived before them, these players did not start off exceptionally strong. Specifically, the player who would later become the leader of the 13 Heroes was noted by Evil Eye to have been the weakest of the group at the start. However, throughout their adventures, he would eventually become the strongest of the group. This proved that players had the ability to level up in the New World. The leader was described by Evil Eye as a berserker-type fighter that would always swing his sword no matter how many injuries he sustained, which gives evidence as to what his class was. He was also gifted the 8 Greed Kings guild weapon by Platinum Dragon Lord. At some point, he also imparted knowledge of the existence of players and Yggdrasil to Platinum Dragon Lord and Regret. Sometime during the early parts of his journey, the leader and the other player member began to fight for reasons that have not been confirmed. This resulted in the leader killing his player companion, which caused him to become deeply shocked and disturbed that he was capable of killing his friend. It is unknown exactly how the leader ended up dying, but it is theorized he was lethally wounded during his battle with his player companion. He ended up dying near Platinum Dragon Lord and Regret and requested not to be resurrected due to the guilt he felt over killing his friend. And so that covers all that has been disclosed about players other than Ainz in the history of the New World. In short, all of them are dead, so it is unlikely we will ever see them in person in the current story, but learning about them provides a lot of context and background information about things happening in Ainz's time. So I hope you guys found this video informative as well as enjoyable, and if you did, please hit that like button to let me know. Also, if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel as it helps me out a lot and will also let you know whenever I post in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.